Hey guys, I'm MikroTik Marc, and welcome to Bridge Mode, where we connect with real-world network operators and professionals to talk about network deployments and explore their questions and stories. Join us as we connect ideas, solutions, and the people who make it all happen. Hey guys, I'm MikroTik Marc with Admiral Platform, and with us today we have...
I'm Tyler Casey with DMTech.
Hey guys, so Bridge Mode is where we just chat about all things MikroTik and I guess any other things that pop into play. Today is the day after the Super Bowl. We're just going to take a look at some conversations about internet traffic. I know in my past as an operator, ran into scenarios where we almost always had some kind of outage during the Super Bowl, get some emergency call outs. We thought, hey, let's take a look at what the traffic looked like on the DMTech network and see if we see any anomalies or blips.
Yeah, I was a little late getting into the office today, so I didn't have a chance to review. But we definitely looks like our charts do show that we had a spike in network traffic around typical streaming time for us, which is like kind of that 8 to 10 o'clock, but would have been significantly after the Super Bowl was over. Because I think kickoff was at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time, and I it didn't. Oh, we can do a screen share. We can review, take a look, but it didn't. I don't know if I could see a really marked jump around that time. Looks like the peak that we have would have been well after the Super Bowl was over. Although the area that we're in, there's still a lot of we'll say low tech or lesser tech people. So definitely like actual TV service is still pretty prevalent around here, like through Dish Network, Direct TV. So I'm wondering if maybe a lot of the traffic was or maybe a lot of people were watching on traditional TV services
Not
rather
so
than
much over the top.
that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that could explain it, but we can, take a look and dive in, see if it really looks that different. Well, yeah, let me do a screen share and I can pull up
Yeah, so
like the
content-wise, I was
edge.
thinking we would talk a little bit about the new Hex
Yeah,
AX
the
because
HAP AXS.
I mean,
Wait,
yeah, that
the
thing,
hex, which one? The
the
hex, the
Hex,
hex,
which one is
HAP,
it?
the HAP AXS.
HAP AXS, that's the one.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's got some hotness to it. I think we should talk about it.
yeah.
Anyway, feel free to screen share. We'll talk about that for a little bit and then
So I'm going to turn these off and we just look at like our two actual upstream facing interfaces. So we've got Cogent and Hurricane. And first of all, how's that for a beautiful split, right? Like beautiful
pretty
50.
balanced. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, oh, look at that.
Are you just
Like,
doing that with BGP advertisements or are you
yeah,
managing? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, BGP. BGP and a little bit of tweaking, but that's man, that's so close. That's crazy. Okay, so
Yeah,
if
that
we
looks
look,
good.
but if we
So,
look at
for anybody who's watching, you're doing like a /22 and then some 24s and then vice
Yeah, so
versa.
we have two different /21s that we
Yeah.
advertise both to Cogent and Hurricane. What we found though, which is pretty insane, and I'm not throwing shade. I'll be clear. I'm not throwing shade at anybody, but the second, because we've been on Cogent for like 15 years, and we've only been on Hurricane for like two probably that we picked up HE. And so as soon as we turned it up, and coincidentally, the /21s that we have, they're not even our own /21s. They're literally /21s that we lease from Cogent and then just advertise right back to them again. So it's like, hey, can you guys give us some IP addresses that we can just turn right back around and advertise right back to you? But then we picked up HE, and of course we started advertising, and just as like a standard default, we just took the two /21s that we had and just advertised them equally to both. Just like, okay, let's just show both of you guys all of our cards and let's just let the global routing table figure out, what it wants to do. But as an ISP, particularly a primarily residential ISP, BGP is kind of an interesting it's kind of an interesting animal because we think of, you know, while a lot of the world thinks of it in terms of like ingress and egress, we definitely think of it in terms of like upload and download, as like a primarily very residential subscriber heavy network. Download is everything, like the download is king. And download or egress, that's the traffic that's entering our network. So advertising your network or advertising your prefixes out to the world is pretty trivial, like that's pretty cut and dry, but you have way less influence over the way that the traffic actually gets back to you, like which is your download. And what is insane is the second we turned up that HE circuit and just started advertising both of them, we found out that like 95% of all of the DMTech traffic was coming in on Hurricane. And
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Okay.
Yeah, it
And
almost goes into an active standby scenario, right?
right.
Because hurricane's just so well connected.
Right, right. So I did everything I could, and I even reached out to Cogent and I was like, "Hey, well, I want to do some testing with you guys because which I guess technically, it's their IPs, but for all intents and purposes, it's our IPs. I mean, we
You
pay
got an
for them.
LOA with them.
Yeah, we got an
Yeah.
LOA. They're swept to us. Like they're our IPs. But it is still weird, like it is a little bit weird that these IPs that like were theirs forever before we started leasing them, as soon as we connect with HE, like 95% of the global internet was like, HE looks way better. And so I was like, oof, Cogent, you need to gotta step it way, way up. So unfortunately, yeah, I know that there's different tricks, you can like prepend and stuff like that, to try to balance that out. So what we do, and I don't know, this might be the poor man's load balancing, but so far we haven't had any issues where we'll advertise both /21s to both just so that we have full redundancy in case one of them goes down. But then we can selectively advertise more specific prefixes to certain peers just so that the rest of the global routing table sees them as being more preferred. To get back to us. But yeah, we had to, selectively advertise like a whole bunch of /24s to Cogent intentionally just to try to get the rest of the internet to be like, okay, we'll use Cogent.
You know,
Uh,
I like that strategy. I use that all the time as long as you have larger than a 23.
yeah,
Obviously, if you only have a 24 or if you have two 24s and you can't really advertise a larger subnet, then
yeah,
that makes that's where the prepending and other strategies come into play because that's your only option. But yeah,
yeah.
if you've got bigger than a 23, which obviously you do, you got a whole bunch of options. And I think the larger, shorter prefix is the way to go for
Right.
that balance of traffic.
And we can see here, even with us selectively advertising prefixes, it's still favoring Hurricane over Cogent. So if I really wanted to balance that out, I could maybe throw another 24 onto Cogent. But I mean, I'm not that neurotic. Like I just wanted to I wanted to make good symmetrical use of our two, 10 gig circuits and not have, like a 95 by 5 split, which I mean, it's fine. Like it's
Both of
still,
them
it's
could carry the load.
right, right. They can both carry it, um, but yeah, you can definitely see just by looking, if you were to add at the highest peak that we have, we got 6.1 gigs right there and 5.3. So if you were to
You actually
aggregate
would
those,
go,
that's definitely more than 10. So in
yeah,
this case,
yeah,
we
you'd be
are
in congestion if
right.
you did fail one.
Yep. So that is why we are definitely wanting to leverage two as evenly and uniformly as we can. But if we scale this out, because we were talking about the load, let me look at a week and turn these back off. So this would have been last night, and this is I'm in Pacific time, so that would have been 8 p.m. Pacific time, and you can see that that is definitely markedly higher than any other peaks in the last 7 days. Um, and
But it's
then what?
not. It's not out of line. It's just a little bit higher.
Right. Well,
And
but that was
what's
also
interesting, you can see that the time that it started peaking also, it looks like you've usually got your kind of flow there, and it started just a little bit earlier yesterday.
yeah, yeah, but certainly not like holy cow. And again, by 8 p.m., 8 p.m. Pacific time, that would have been I don't actually know what time the game ended. I watched it, but I wasn't watching the clock. Kickoff was at
Yeah, I feel it was
3:30.
probably around 6 your time, I think.
Right. So that would have
Maybe
been
7.
right. So definitely well before the peak. So
Yeah,
it is a
yeah.
high peak, but not one that I could explain from the game. And then, man, shout out to that CPU usage. Look at that. Look at that. That's fantastic.
What is
Fantastic.
this guy as far as
This
model
is this is the
hardware?
2216.
Oh yeah.
This is the 2216 doing L3HW. Well, doing almost pure L3HW. So L3HW has a few different. There's like two or three different like subcat. You've got like pure L3HW, then you have like fast track
Mhm.
L3HW, and like some other stuff. Because if you do purely only L3HW, you can do it 100% in hardware, but then you also sacrifice the ability to do any kind of firewalling at all. That's even in raw. Like I think even at the raw level, um, I wasn't sure about that, but I tested it, and yeah, like even at even raw does not apply to pure L3HW. And I just wasn't willing to make that concession to say, I have absolutely no firewall at all. And realistically, you can't just have no firewall. You just have to push it either, got to put it before it or push it, further. And I'm like, I don't know where's better to do it than right at the edge. I feel like at the edge makes the most sense. But fortunately, Tick makes it available for us to do the fast track L3 HW. So it's all of my customer traffic will still traverse my small firewall, but only that first packet. And then the rest of the connection gets fast tracked, and the fast track is pushed to L3HW. So it's a good, I feel like, good middle ground, good hybrid approach.
I
Uh,
agree with you. Yeah, I really like the strategy that you've taken there because, like you say, it's all about concessions, and that's a pretty big concession to say, hey, no firewall at all,
right.
instead of just first packet
Now
strategy.
I can actually show you because I have a 2216 that's further down in my stack. That's another router inward from the edge. And because that one is already post firewall, there is no need for me to do, anything that requires contract at all. So if you want to see the exact same, yeah, here you go. So here's the exact same amount of traffic, or at least reasonably, because I think there's some management traffic that it isn't included. No, I think that's about I'd say that's pretty close. I'd say that's pretty bang on. But if we look at this and if we look here at the exact same marker time,
Oh yeah.
0%, 0%, 100%
Everything's in
hardware.
hardware. Yeah,
Everything is in hardware,
that's
which,
crazy.
yeah. So we're talking 12 gigs, things doing, or what, 11-ish, 11 to 12 gigs, 100% in hardware. And
We
like,
should graph the packets per second here as well, because that'd be
is that not
kind of cool
under,
to know.
is that not one of the things that's under extra data?
I don't think it is.
Oh, you could,
Yeah, we're
oh, you
tracking a
know,
whole bunch of other stuff, but I think packets per second would be nice.
actually, there's nothing even here. That's weird.
That's because it's in hardware.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, yeah, everything is.
Well, yeah, but temperature wouldn't be, and VPN count and speed, like even the sensor stuff. I guess I don't know. Yeah, because PSU1 state isn't being tracked, PSU2 state isn't being tracked. Oh well, not the point of this. Not the
Yeah,
point.
and if anybody's interested in learning more about the L3 hardware, we did a bridge mode on that last year
Oh
too.
yeah,
About
yeah,
that.
we did talk about that. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, you wanted to talk about the new hotness.
I think it would be awesome to talk about some MikroTik Wi-Fi here. I know that the is it HAP AXS
HAP
just came out.
AXS.
It's
Yes.
one of their newest MikroTik Wi-Fi models.
Yep.
I think it's triple chain. It's got SFP port. Look at this. You got one
Yeah.
handy.
Yep. I
Beautiful.
got one. It's already got our sticker on it. I mean, I'm showing you this. They can literally just go to the MikroTik website and look at it, and it's got better than what I could ever show. But yeah, it's triple chain. Wi-Fi 6. Oh, that was weird. Triple chain Wi-Fi 6. It has PoE in and PoE out. It has a SFP port. I don't, is it SFP plus or just S? It might be SFP plus. Shoot, I'm not sure. I'll have to check it.
I'm
We don't use that. So I have it just capped off right now. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty awesome. So
why do you like them? I mean, so you and I have talked a little bit out of band of this conversation. Let's start with what do you like about them? What have you seen so far?
yeah, so well, I mean, if I'm being
Obviously, the price point is
yeah,
crazy.
the price is absolutely ridiculous. And I don't want to I'm
Well,
leery about
we could easily say they're under $100. They're well under $100
yeah, yeah.
for the price that you can get
Let,
maybe an
let me
AC2
let me put it
or
to you this way.
yeah.
Prior to the launch of these, our flagship router that we used. Now, mind you, when I say our flagship router, the DMTech flagship router, of course, that's not meaning like the MikroTik home Wi-Fi flagship router. They have routers for home Wi-Fi. If you want to spend $200 a router, you can. But the way that we look at the MikroTik Wi-Fi is a little bit different than just like a consumer or like an enthusiast would. Because obviously, if you're like an enthusiast, like yourself, you're only buying for yourself, you're going to be like, I want, like give me the biggest,
I could even
nastiest
build my
router.
own, right? I can
Right. It's
grab
like,
a board and put in some radios and do my own thing,
right.
fully build it
So,
from scratch.
so of course, even for the last couple of years, we've had the AX2, or I guess it's not technically the AX2 and the AX3, it's the AX squared and the AX cubed. If you go by what MikroTik says, whatever, it's the AX2 and the AX3. Those have been around for a while, and I actually have some of those at home. But those are like 150, or I don't know. I'd have to look. North of $100 each
I think
unit.
they're like 100 and 150 rough
Yeah.
pricing. Yeah.
And so when you really start looking at home Wi-Fi through the lens of an ISP or an MSP rather than just like a consumer, then that kind of changes the way that you look at it, because you start thinking like, okay, I need something that I can purchase at scale and deploy at scale that's still profitable, for me to offer as like a value added managed service. And if we have a router so I say the AC2 was like our flagship for the longest time, because the AC2 had a good balance of performance. It was 5 gigahertz AC, of course 2 gigahertz N, and it was especially once MikroTik came out with the Wi-Fi Wave 2. Initially upon launch they were called Wi-Fi Wave 2, and I remember we kind of were testing that, and I was like, oh, this is interesting because it's like a whole other NPK package that you like drop onto the router. But then right around that same time, MikroTik started adopting this more like modular architecture where you could actually have different Wi-Fi packages on a device. And uh, I used to know like the full history, but we've kind of like moved past it. But anyway, suffice it to say, as it is currently, you have wireless, which is like legacy wireless, like pre RouterOS v7, and then you have uh, just Wi-Fi, which used to be Wi-Fi Wave 2, but is now just Wi-Fi. But you can actually run both packages on the same router. Now, the interfaces, your actual WLAN interfaces, can only be one or the other. But I think the actual management, like the management console, you can have the Wi-Fi management console and the legacy wireless slash Capsman management interface like on the same router. Very interesting what they're doing with like the modular packages and that kind of stuff. But anyway, the AC2 is what we used forever. And, that was our go-to because it was very affordable, had good performance. It was reliable. And then at any point we could have just sprung for the AX2 or the AX3, like they were there, they were available. We just kind of opted not to because we felt like the price difference wouldn't necessarily be noticed by the majority of our customers. Like the CPU power was tremendously higher, but it's like, again, from, just residential, not an enthusiast, like not for your average residential home user that's just wanting to stream Netflix and, like listen to music. It's like Wi-Fi is really king, like the ability just to
Well,
offer
in addition, like an AC2, based on my testing, was able to do 800 or 900 megs. So
right,
like going up to an AX2 or AX3, uh, how much faster are you going to get on a
right.
gig port, right? Like it's
particular Particularly with the Wave 2 drivers. Once MikroTik released the Wave 2 drivers, and AC2 was one of the models that was able to be loaded with the Wave 2 drivers, because there was only like a few, the product line that could take the Wave 2 drivers wasn't very high.
yeah, there's
So
only
it's
like three of
there
them,
was
I
there was
think.
only like a few of them. So the fact that the AC2 could take it, I was like, that's cool, because the performance difference, I will say in our testing, the performance difference pre-Wave 2 to post-Wave 2 on 2 gigahertz N is like nothing. I don't think there was any performance change, but it was a huge performance change on the 5 gigahertz.
I
And
saw the
truthfully,
same
I
thing.
would say
Yeah.
5 gigahertz on 5 gigahertz AC Wave 2 is very close to 5 gigahertz AX. Like, I was surprised at how close it could get. It was probably within 80 to 90%, the performance of native AX just with a package upgrade. So I was like, that's really cool. That was good on MikroTik for breathing some new life into what would otherwise be considered a potentially, legacy product with the AC2. But then once I was one of the first people that heard about the AXS, because I'm in those circles, and I was immediately like, okay, this looks like this could be a total game changer. And I was one of the first people to put in an order. I think I bought every single one that my distributor had. Like, I bought every one that they had, and then they got another shipment, and I was like, okay, give me every one that you have again, because the price was literally less than $5. At least my price was less than $5 per unit more than what I was paying for a for the AC2. And
Right.
and I was like, that's
Yeah,
re-
so retail on
oh
it's $79, right?
yeah,
So you're probably getting better than that. And yeah, it's roughly the price of an AC2, maybe a couple dollars more.
yeah. Oh, it's a 2.5 gig SFP port. 2.5 gig. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I got it. So, just crazy, just absolutely, crazy how much better the CPU is, crazy how much better the boot up time is, the Wi-Fi
Oh yeah, you
particularly.
mentioned that I mean, as far as upgrades go, I know many times MikroTik's especially on a firmware update will take usually 90 seconds minimum
Yeah,
and a couple minutes, right?
you
Like
know, dude, I don't know. I could not tell you what it is with the AC2 specifically, because we tested the hell out of this on so many different routers, and the AC2 specifically has the slowest firmware upgrade time I have ever seen. It is so slow. Once it's booted, like once it's booted up, it's fine. So like just in between reboots, like if you power cycle the thing, it's really no different than any other TIC product. Like, the performance is great. But if you're doing like a net install or just like a simple, I mean, forget net install, even if you're doing just a simple within the UI, just like a firmware update, it legit takes like 6 minutes, like 6+ minutes for one of these things to reboot. I'm
wow,
like,
that's a long
that's a
time.
long time. That is a long time. And then it's no problem. Once it's up, back to business as usual. Everything's fine. Future reboots are fine. And it seems like even once you're on, and I thought, okay, maybe it's going from 6 to 7, because that's another. Oh yeah, for people that don't know, if you have a router that is running router SV6 and you want to try the new Wi-Fi Wave 2 or Wi-Fi package, you have to upgrade to 7. There is no Wi-Fi Wave 2 on Router OS version 6. So initially, I thought that it was maybe like just that it took so long going from 6 to 7, but then, maybe further updates would be faster. But no, like even I tested going from 7.20.7 to 7.20.8. 6 minutes. So
Wow.
yeah, I don't know. I don't.
And you said the AXS
Oh
boots
yeah.
like
Oh, dude,
in no time.
The AXS, I can do a net install in like probably 30 seconds. Say probably like less than 30 seconds per router. It's crazy. But really, the AC2, what was so fascinating to me about how long it took is that that was considered like unbearably slow, even when compared to stuff like the RB951 series or like the HAP Lite series. You're talking way underpowered, way slower routers, and the AC2 still
And single
crawled on the
core,
update.
right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Even, yeah, this is a dual core router, still crawled on those updates compared to everything else. So don't know why. If anybody at MikroTik or if anybody else watching knows why they take so long, I would sure love to hear it. Well, you know what? I don't really know if I care anymore because we've moved past it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
at this
the
point,
AXS,
if you're going to do anything, it's going to be
yeah.
another AXS.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what is fascinating to me, I think, about the AXS is that, MikroTik, they have a whole lot of SKUs for the home Wi-Fi. Their home Wi-Fi line. Well, they have a lot of SKUs in general, but like for the home Wi-Fi, starting from, like the HAP Lite, but then you also have like the HAP Minis. Like the HAP, like the one that's like a matchbook that's like that, and then like the
Yes.
slightly bigger one.
Got a little
And then
magnet on it.
yeah,
I love
yep.
that. Yep.
So you got those guys, and then you have like the HAP AC, the HAP AC Lite, which is only 10100 ports, and
Hmm.
then you have the HAP AC2, and then the like HAP AC or maybe HAP AC2 Lite, and the RB951
And there was an
2H.
AC3 and then the AX Lite and then an
Right.
AX
Yeah.
and
Oh, there
then
is yeah, I forgot the AX
AX2,
Lite, which is
AX3.
like it's a lot. Like it's a lot of different SKUs, and a lot of them, the price differences are so minimal
Hmm.
that I'm like, why? Like, why are there so many different? It's like, what? Why are there so many different SKUs? And particularly when you start looking at really legacy gear, like anything like RB951, like the RB951s and all that, I'm like, why does that even exist? Like, what problem is that? What problem is it solving? Why is it even still being manufactured and produced? Like
Well, the
what?
951, his claim to fame, because I actually, when my software manages devices, right,
Mm,
and maybe more than 5 years ago, I think the 951 was the number one model that our software managed, and the 2.4 gig power output was just incredible.
it is.
So it
Mm,
was the best bang for the buck for coverage of wireless on the
that,
951.
that
So
makes sense.
that was its claim to fame at the time. But you're right, today, I don't know why you would pick that. And as long as we're talking about Wi-Fi performance and coverage, what are you seeing with this? You're testing on the AXS.
Yeah. So it is tremendously. Now, I guess to really understand that, you got to figure that we understand that Wi-Fi output power and coverage is federally regulated and limited. Like you can't. So really, y- it's fascinating to me that this is even still a conversation because you would think that just there would be like a definitive, like company that would be like, we have the absolute most output power. You cannot go more, and that should be able to be objectively measured as being true because the FCC, regulates all of that. So it's like you can only have so much EIRP. So it's like, how is there still like debate about like, oh, this one has more range? I'm like, it can't, right? I mean, like how could there be differences in terms of range when it's like the EIRP is the EIRP?
But you
But
have sensitivity and gain and noise.
right. So I mean, our experience is that with the AC2 prior to upgrading, I would actually say that upgrading to the Wave 2 drivers on the AC2 may have actually limited range a little bit. I think we may have seen like a little bit of a reduction, but at the increase of throughput and the reduction in latency, because it does do better airtime fairness. So devices that are low performing devices don't penalize the airtime as much for the rest of the clients. But it
Nice.
does look like the range may have been, slightly reduced,
Reduced.
but
Yeah.
maybe that's anecdotal. Like I don't know. That's kind of hard to measure. That it is tricky to measure because you would say if you had a device the argument could be made if you had a device that was affected enough by the minor range reduction that it's now materially being, compromised, that maybe you should have had more adequate Wi-Fi coverage anyway, and that, the minor reduction in power shouldn't really have affected it that much. So, I digress on that. But yeah, the AXS, even according to the spec sheet, if you look on the spec sheet, it shows the antenna gain is the highest out of I think it might be the highest. I don't know if it's higher than one of the ones that has exterior antennas, but it's certainly higher than the AC2, possibly higher than the AX2. Um, so just the combination of that, that it's a fully native AX device, which there's MikroTik already has plenty of them, but we loved it. Like I immediately loved it. I loved how fast it was. It just feels solid. It does PoE in and PoE out. Looking at the AC2 right now, the AC2 does have PoE in, but it does not have PoE out.
I
I
remember that
believe
was
the
one of the
AC3 has
has
PoE in and
yep.
out, and
Yep.
the
But
AX2,
it's a premium price,
I
right?
think the
You could buy
AX2,
two AXSs for one AX3.
right? I think the AX2 has PoE in and PoE out, but and the AXS does as well. So the fact that it was like, and it's triple chain, which your client has to support triple chain to really take it. Although I'm not. I know your client has to support triple chain to take advantage of the performance improvements, but my understanding is that with the triple chain, even having that extra chain can actually help all of the connected devices on the network because it can you have one chain that isn't being dragged so down, so it's like you have like a whole other chain that can help with your with your clients to prevent prevent those lesser performing clients from affecting the rest of the network. um so the fact that you've got triple chain Wi-Fi 6 PoE in and PoE out, um and of 2.5 gig fiber port, and the huge voltage range that the thing supports, like every MikroTik product, and it's just built, like it's just built solid. The thing just feels it just feels like a premium product, and at that price point, I'm like, that's insane. For me, I feel like if you are a if you're just buying for yourself, if you're just an enthusiast, hobbyist, just somebody that wants to get like an awesome tick router to use at home, then sure, splurge and get the AX2 or the AX, either the AX3 or the, AC3, one of those. But for a MSP, ISP that's offering managed Wi-Fi as like a value-added service where you really have to prioritize features relative to price because you're going to be rolling these out at scale, to like a large number of people. It's not always realistic to be like, okay, well, we're going to get $150 router for every single customer. So for us, we were like, this is, massive. It's huge to have a router that can do all that for that price.
Have you heard about the BE3 at all?
I did. I've been kind of watching it, and unfortunately, the AXS was quicker to market, and
Yeah, yeah.
we wanted to jump on it quickly. So when it's like the BE7, I think, when that becomes available, I'm sure we'll check it out. I don't know. Is there any word on what the street price of that thing is supposed to be? I guess that depends on
You
the
know,
distributor. What's MSRP on it?
I was gonna say they don't even have it listed on their website.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so uh I'm looking to see here if it even pops up. Yeah, they don't have it even showing on their website right now. So, they've shown that it's coming soon. And I have seen some distributors say you can pre-order,
Yeah,
but yeah, who knows when it's coming out? We don't know what the final street price is going to be.
right.
So,
So I don't doubt that it's going to
to
be
be
good.
seen. To
I
be
mean,
seen.
I'm sure it's going to be fine. It seems like that's being marketed as like a all-in-one media hub, type thing where you can, run like containers on it, which I think you can run containers on anything that supports, you know, uh, well, once you get to a certain router OS version, you can just install the container package and then start running containerized applications. Doesn't mean they're going to run well, but I guess you can. So that was kind of my impression, is that they were marketing this more as like a all-in-one media center hub where you can run, like a Plex or an MV server on the thing, and lots of IoT stuff, which I'm like, yeah, cool. Like that looks great. We just don't really prioritize that as a ISP or MSP. Again, that seems like something that a hobbyist or enthusiast or home media center guy would really be interested in. But through the lens of an internet service provider, we're like, we want a router that we can give to a customer that's just going to provide great all-around Wi-Fi coverage with, low latency. Nobody cares. Nobody that is getting a router from us or looking to us for their Wi-Fi solutions provider is thinking about, hosting Plex or MB or containers within a router. Like, it's not happening. So we're like, we just need a router that is affordable, easy to deploy, got good features, great Wi-Fi coverage, fast, compatible with Admiral. And so that for us, it just checked every single box, checked every single box at the right time. And so we've been rolling these things out in a big, big way.
Awesome. Sounds like you're pretty happy with them, and it's almost to the point where you don't even look at any other units. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah,
You're not
well,
buying anything except Happy XS now?
no, I mean we have, just a few for outdoor we also use the WAP AXs,
Okay.
which is literally just I think the WAP AX would be the outdoor equivalent of like probably the AX2, if I were to guess. I imagine we could pull it up and literally look at the, board and CPU and find out literally what the equivalent is. But yeah, it's interesting because I feel like for as long as I have been in
This
the,
guy
yeah, the WAP AXs, yeah. So that's an ARM.
in IP54. Yeah. Yeah, I love the WAPs, I gotta say. Been using those for many years. I don't
Yeah,
have any WAP AXs. I'm still on the WAP ACs, but
yeah. So we've been deploying the WAP AXs. I guess, maybe I should take a moment to, educate some people on, really the fundamental differences between AC and, AX, and why you might opt for one over the other, because, we know that AX is newer. We know that it's better, but people may not understand necessarily like what benefits it brings to the table other than just, like it's faster. So the AC standard, if you look at 802.11 AC, that standard was only ratified for 5 gigahertz. 802.11, I don't believe was ever ratified for uh, N. Now, that's interesting because I want to say there were some vendors that had 2 gigahertz AC. I think Ubiquiti even had like some 2 gigahertz AC like radios, but I don't actually think they were based on a standard. So if you look at any dual band router, we'll say dual band AC router, predating AX. When it says dual band AC, really what that means is it means 5 gigahertz AC, 2 gigahertz N. So that means the N in any 5 gigahertz AC is not appreciably different than just a single band wireless N router. So the
from
biggest
5 years
performance,
ago, right?
yeah, right, even predating, 5 gigahertz AC.
Yep.
So the N, or that 2 gigahertz, has always been like the big glaring weak point on those routers. And then but it's because so many devices support 5 gigahertz and we try to push people to 5 gigahertz that we kind of didn't. That was kind of another reason that kept us on the AC2s for so long, even though they only have a 2 gig N, is we're like, man, we really try not to keep anybody on the 2 gig. Let's try to push them all onto the 5 gig and just let IoT devices that have to be on the 2.4 be on the 2.4. But AX was actually ratified and developed for 2.4 gigahertz. So uh, I want to say the in our testing, it's probably a 15 to 20% improvement on the 5 gigahertz from AC Wave 2 to AX, which is still like pretty good. But the 2.4 gig from N to AX is massive.
It
It's
is massive.
massive, huge difference. And it's literally different to the point of like basically making 2.4 usable again. You know,
100%. Yeah,
like
you
the,
and I have talked about this before that I started testing my AX Wi-Fi and I accidentally thought I was testing the 5 gig because I was getting such good throughput. I
yeah,
thought it was low performance for the 5 gig network,
yeah,
but it was
yeah.
actually that I was getting 4 times as much bandwidth as I've ever gotten on a 2 gig network.
Right. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. Like in our testing, I would say that the 2 gig AX was kind of on par with the 5 gig AC Wave 2 performance. Like it's crazy.
Almost. Yeah,
We're
yes.
almost right, almost. So that's just wild. Like it's wild making it usable again. Yeah, as long as I've been in the industry, MikroTik has always just got a bad rap for having bad wireless in general, and extending from their like backhaul, like their point to point and point to multi-point radios, ranging to their in-home Wi-Fi, like they've just always got a bad rap for the
I agree
Wi-Fi.
with that. I agree with
And
that.
and that's been
But
in,
I mean, admittedly, they have been kind of like it's pretty common that they're a generation behind
yeah,
other
that's true.
Wi-Fi manufacturers, right? Like they'll be even right now, Wi-Fi 6 is out in a readily available
And
GA.
Wi-Fi
Wi-Fi
7 is
7 is
definitely,
still on the way, and other
yeah,
vendors have 7, in the marketplace in customer homes.
which doesn't bother me for the record. It doesn't bother me that they're a generation behind. I think that that's kind of like that depends on who you ask, because I've come to find that everything from them tends to be very stable and just like, you know, what you're going to get. And so
Well, I can tell you how many Wi-Fi 7 devices I have in my house right now, and it's zero. And
right.
I'll
I,
get some
I've
this year, but
I've never been a bleeding edge chaser, so I've never really cared about that. But I don't understand the hate because I mean, you've seen my Admiral, like I have thousands of MikroTik Wi-Fi devices in customers' homes, and I just don't have any real issues that I could actually trace definitively back to the router and be like, this would not have happened if this wasn't a tick. Like there's been plenty of issues that I'm like, it's, weird, but could you confidently say like, if this router had been a TP-Link or a Netgear or whatever and not a tick, this would not have happened, point blank, period. And I just can't say that. Like I just haven't had that experience. Now, my experience has been that I think because the management interface on tick, whether it be Winbox or you're using the web UI or whatever, it exposes a lot of fields. It exposes a lot of parameters that you can set up to really tweak the Wi-Fi. And so I think that a lot of people, if they don't know what they're doing and they don't really know like how to optimize their Wi-Fi deployment, they can end up in a situation where it just doesn't really work very well because they haven't tuned and optimized it to work very well. While as more consumer grade stuff is intended to be more dummy proof, like set it and forget it, where they really restrict the amount of options that you have
that's right.
available just in the sake of making it like kind of out of the box work. But I feel like as long as you tune it correctly, particularly, I'll confidently say, particularly with the AX line. I think MikroTik, with starting at AX and moving forward, the performance is, hugely better than in anything that I'd seen before then. It's very reliable. But yeah, you have to know what you're doing. So I don't know. To the naysayers of the MikroTik Wi-Fi, I'm not throwing shade, because I'm sure there's plenty of people that are just as qualified to me. I'm like, how sure are you that you're setting it up correctly? How sure are you that the changes that you're implementing are going to have the effect that you think they're going to have? Because I mean, I think it's great. I love it. I've got tons in my house. You have probably tons in your house. Our staff has tons in their house, and we don't have any issues with it. Just got to know what you're doing. Or if you
I would
don't,
totally
ask.
agree with that. And if you're new to MikroTik AX and you want to grab some of those gotchas and have them not affect you, check out the admiralplatform.com blog post that I wrote on
Oh yeah,
AI's learnings. I did run into some pain
we
with
did too.
MikroTik for some of the default values. Like you
With
said,
WPA3 was one of them, and then the channel, some upper AX
some of the
channels,
frequency
like
selection that
50, like
happens automatically.
5845 or something like
Yep,
that. I
yep.
had issues where some of
So
my
the network just
devices
goes
could.
invisible, and you're
Yep,
like,
yep,
hey, what happened here?
yep. Yeah,
Yeah, so there has been some pain and learning curves, but once you get it locked in and kind of dialed into the settings that work for your deployment, I agree with you. I've had nothing but rock solid performance. I never have to reboot. I never
yeah,
like I have a Google Wi-Fi mesh system that I have to reboot at least once a month just to get it back into operation.
yeah.
On the MikroTik side, I never reboot anything. Everything just runs forever.
That's been my
The only time it
experience as
reboots
well.
is when I lose power.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know to the people, like I said, the naysayers. I'm sure everybody has their reasons and their experiences, and they say it's lagging behind, and like it doesn't have, or they'll be like, if you really want, good in-home Wi-Fi, you should get this, and then they mention something that's four times the price, and I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
okay, yeah, sure. I mean,
Well, there are two legitimate complaints I heard over the last couple of weeks. One being that band steering, right? Like, hey, have this thing jump over to the right frequency, and
yeah,
it can
I,
make a difference. It can make a difference. And then two is the um, shoot, I just lost it. The dedicated 5 gig radio for backhaul. So
well, that's only on, okay, so, and I don't know how much time we have.
yeah, we got
The
time.
Okay, so to my knowledge, there is only one, count 'em one, exactly one MikroTik home Wi-Fi router that has a dedicated 5 gigahertz radio for backhaul, and that is the audience. I don't think there's anything else in their product line that
You can
does.
you can build your own. They
Yeah,
have, right? But
yeah, if you
yes,
get a
yep,
router board.
yep.
But as far as like prepackaged, I think the audience is it. Everything else,
So you know what really sucks about the audience? MikroTik in RouterOS version 6, the audience, you grab one, push the button until it either turns green or blue, I don't remember which
yep,
color, and it's ready to pair. You go plug another one in somewhere else, push the button, it goes, I think, blue, it
mm,
starts flashing, they sync up, goes green, boom, you're done.
yeah,
That was the most beautiful pairing. They broke that. You upgrade to MikroTik RouterOS version 7. The button no longer does anything. It'll resets
oh,
caps mode. And that whole beautiful automatic meshing is just gone.
yeah,
Super frustrating from my perspective because this was such a brilliant solution that made it really easy for your on-site tech to be able to pair these things. You don't need engineering. You don't need to have them,
yeah.
wired in to begin with to set it up and then move it to the other location. It was fantastic. I loved it. I wish they would do that again.
So some pain points that we've had, but this isn't specific to just MikroTik. This is just specific to. I actually made a post about this in Wisp Talk, and I'll get your thoughts on it. I feel like in the world of Wi-Fi, all of the integrators and MSP and IT guys are split right down the middle. And they say, do you merge your SSIDs or do you split your
Hmm.
SSIDs? And I made a poll about it, and just exactly as I thought, it was split. I might have been, 55-45. 55 said merged, 45
Close
said
enough to
split.
50/50.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very, very close. And, we've been in this business for a long time, and we've tested it multiple different ways. And so the arguments for a merged SSID is that, of course, merged SSIDs are the only way that you actually get roaming, because you can't do seamless roaming without it. But the arguments for merged SSIDs is that roaming is at least standardized, or it's kind of supposed to be standardized, where device manufacturers follow the 802.11 standard to be like, okay, connect to 5 gig. And there's like certain criteria that it has to follow. But I mean, I'll be honest with you, it it doesn't freaking work. I mean, like it just doesn't. Like it doesn't work, or it doesn't work consistently. It's very device
That's the deal.
dependent.
It's device
It's
dependent.
very device
Whatever
and
the
client
stack.
dependent.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I wanted to mention that because you had mentioned, like band steering, because you've got band steering and you've got like connect priority, which is like another relatively new one that was implemented in like Wi-Fi Wave 2 and in AX. You have all of these things that are intended to try to influence or push, clients to one band or another, short of just, I mean, yeah, I guess you can always add that client to the access list on a band and be like reject,
That's a
and
pain in the butt.
don't ever let it, like do that. Like, but then even then, if you have a device that's consistently wanting to connect to the 2.4, we've actually tested this where I had a device that kept repeatedly wanting to connect to the 2.4. And so I added it to the access list on the 2.4 and said reject. And then the only thing that happened is the device just sat there for 5 minutes failing to connect at all because it was so insistent on connecting to the 2.4 that it didn't even connect to the 5 gig that was right there. And so I just disabled the 2.4 entirely so that I was only broadcasting on 5 gig. Then my device had no issue with connecting to 5 gig. It's like,
Oh,
oh yes,
jeez.
you're there. I love you.
That's a
And then I
terrible network
then
stack.
I
Yeah.
removed it from the access list and let 2.4 go active. And then my device said, I'll roam back to 2.4 again. And I'm like, why? So like the problem with the 2.4 or with merged SSIDs is that it's the client device is having to make the decision, and you can get a lot of excessive unnecessary roaming, which again, MikroTik naysayers say you should be able to tune, like, well, that's a problem with the MikroTik implementation. Other routers don't have that same problem. But I would say, well, how do you figure? Because the client is the device that's making the roaming decision, not the router. It's not like the MikroTik is telling the device, no, you need to connect to 2.4. It's just sitting there beaconing, and whatever connects, it just goes through, like the authentication process. So then merged, or sorry, with split SSIDs. At my house, I prefer split SSIDs. I do not like merged SSIDs. And the reason for that is I want to make absolutely certain that on each individual device, I can be connecting it to the band that I know is optimal for that
It's
device.
deterministic.
Right. It's very,
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
very deterministic. So you're completely taking the guesswork out of it. But the argument against that, particularly if you're providing managed Wi-Fi, or these are going in lesser tech savvy people's homes, is inevitably you will end up with a scenario where the person is connecting devices to the incorrect band or a less than favorable band. And there's been a lot of times that I've logged into somebody's router that has dual band split SSIDs, and I see 30 devices on the 2.4 and not a single one of them on the 5 gig. And I'm like, why? And they're like, oh, I didn't know which one I was supposed to pick. So I just picked, so they've just been picking the same one.
So,
And
so I'm going to share the best tip I ever heard about splitting, and that is to call the 5 gig network. So at my house, we call it Perea, right? My
mhm,
last name.
yeah,
So it's Perea dash fast,
yeah.
and then the 2 gig network is Perea dash slow.
Oh,
And that way,
so
if slow is the only one you see, then join that one. But if you see fast, that's the one you want to be on.
you know what? That's incredible. And I don't know if we even, this must be an insane coincidence. Our default deployment for split SSID networks is it's customer last name fast for the 5 gigahertz, and then it is customer last name far for the 2.4
R.
gigahertz.
That's a
So
good name too.
we
Yeah.
do fast and far. I didn't really like the idea of fast and slow because I figured that like if you're an ISP
You don't want
and
to
you're
call
deploying
anything
right,
slow.
if
Yeah,
you're an
yeah, yeah.
ISP and you're deploying a router in your customer's home and one of the names is slow, they're going to be like, what the hell? Like, why would I even want that? So we standardize on fast and far
I
and
like
just
it.
help,
I like
right.
it.
And that's what we do. But I've seen situations where every single device in the customer's house was connected to the far. And I was like, why? And they're like, well, I don't know. That's the one I've always used. And like I've just never known any different. And I see devices where like the signal is in like the 20s or 30s where I'm like, that could be pushed over to the 5 gig,
Yeah,
like that should.
obviously.
But then I'll see the opposite situation where I'll get in and every single device is on the 5 gig with terrible signals. And I was like, these should have been on the far.
Yeah,
And then they're in a situation where because it's split SSIDs, they have to manually go to each
that's
and every
right.
single device. So it's like, you can see what I'm saying. It's like damned if you do and damned if you don't. Like merged isn't the all-in-one,
There's
split
that,
isn't the
and that's why you get
all-in-one.
the 50-50 split. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's there's no perfect solution. It's that's just one of the many struggles of being an ISP and MSP is there's no perfect answer for how to do home Wi-Fi, and we're just always chasing the best customer experience.
But the best answer we have for today is that if you're buying MikroTik for Wi-Fi, the AXS is the bang for the buck, best device to buy at the current moment,
I
February
would say
2026.
I would say yes. If you're buying MikroTik for the sole purpose of just wanting a badass Wi-Fi AP and you're not concerned with the CPU power that's a so like with like an AX2 or an AX3 that have far more robust CPUs. If you're not doing VPN tunnels, if you're not doing VPN concentration, if you're not running containers or anything like that, if you're just like give me the Wi-Fi, I feel like the AXS is the best option. Like I don't know how you can get better.
Well, thanks, Tyler. I really appreciate your time today. You want to say hi to your customers here?
Yeah. Again, I'm Tyler Casey. I'm the network engineer and one of the co-owners of DMTech. We're just a small rural WISP that's headquartered in Corning, California. We primarily serve Tehama, Glenn, and Butte counties. And yeah, we're primarily very heavily primarily residential WISP. We do some, commercial and enterprise, but it's mostly residential. So that's kind of that's the lens that we look through for all of our decisions, is knowing that it's just people and their homes that we're providing service to primarily. So yeah, happy to be here. Always happy to talk shop and share experiences and share advice. It's cool. It's a cool industry. Love what we do. I think we have the coolest job there is.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler. I'm MikroTik Marc with Admiral Platform, where we help MikroTik operators all around the world streamline their operations and do a amazing job with our software managing their MikroTiks.
Yeah, Admiral's a massive game changer for us, for sure. It's empowered us to do things that historically we would have only dreamed of being able to do with respect to managed Wi-Fi and providing a better customer experience. So it's great.
Keep routing the world with MikroTiks and keep managing your MikroTiks with Admiral. We'll see you next time on Bridge Mode. Are you a network engineer or operator with questions, ideas, and stories to share and want to connect with us on Bridge Mode? Send us an email at bridgemode@admiralplatform.com to get the conversation started.